friends, it's me, your pal Kelly Zemnikas, and welcome to episode number 55 of It'll Be Fine. So glad you're here today. And I'm also glad for today's episode because there's a surprise bake. Kelly here wasn't planning to bake for this one. I thought I was just having a food chat. And then my guest was like, let's make something. So I'm not going to complain because now there is cake in my future. We're making like a coffee cake. But it's called a berry buckle. We're going to find out the origins of that story. My guest, by the way, is the podcast superstar that is Ryan McNeil. I'm so glad Ryan is on the show. We have known each other since high school, so stay tuned for some sweet high school pics of Kelly and Ryan. Yay! And he is like a podcast superstar. He hosts a fantastic podcast called the Matinee. I've been lucky enough to be on the show twice, so clearly he has excellent taste in the people he brings on the show. But this guy knows his movies. He knows his stuff. So I'm super excited to talk movies and food, maybe some baseball, because we are both major fans. And there's some great, food stories associated with baseball too. So this is a good day, guys, a seriously good day. And on today's show, we are offering some love, offering some attention to the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. And they are doing some ridiculously important work of making sure that every Canadian has access to legal help, and they defend our rights and our freedoms. I mean, that's a tall order, but a very important one. So if you can help them out, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, just go down below to the show info, give them a shout, and support them if you can. Guys, this is going to be a great show. And I'm about to bake a cake I've never made before and then eat it. I can't complain.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I was just like kind of browsing, I was paying some bills and whatever, and then I got your text. I was like, oh shit, I gotta start. But like I was like ready well before. It's my whole thing of like I'm always running early. So even if I'm late, I'm not really late.
It's a good way to be. That's a good way to be.
It is.
I find time is like zooming. It's just zooming. I get up early. I'm like, I'm going to do all these things. And then it's like, how is it 3:00? Where was I? How did that happen? This was delicious. I haven't tasted it yet, but I've got my coffee cake here.
Okay. Oh, so neither one of us is making it on camera.
Well, so I got confused. So I thought we were just doing a food chat, and then you mentioned the baking, and then I was like, oh, okay, let's bake it together. So I feel like, I don't know. Did you make yours?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have a slice?
I'll go cut one.
Go grab one. Yeah. The dough, I'm doing this part first. So basically the base of the cake, you want to have this nice moussey texture to it when you're mixing it. And what is in here is the following. We've got baking powder, salt. I have used clove, but they call for nutmeg, all-purpose flour, milk, although I used oat beverage. And I find if you use a milk alternative, double the amount of milk that it's called for. So this calls for 1/2 cup of milk. I used a full cup of oat beverage. It's oat milk. Anyways. You can't call it milk anymore. It also has vanilla extract, 1 large egg, sugar. I used coconut sugar, and 4 tablespoons of butter, which is about 1 1/4 cup of butter. So that is the first part. And again, you want to have this like moussey texture to it. Now we're going to set this aside and make the crumble. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned for the batter itself of the cake, but you do need to add salt, just so you know. Kosher salt. It doesn't say kosher salt, but I use that. So now I'm about to make the crumble topping, which quite honestly, I'm gonna use my hands. They're washed. and just crumble it together. So for the topping, you are going to need, again, 4 tablespoons of butter, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. It says 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I have used 1 teaspoon of allspice to give it an extra punch. It calls for almond extract, 1/2 teaspoon. I don't have it, so I used vanilla. I will be putting berries in this, so a part of me was like, should I use lemon extract? But I went with vanilla. And a pinch of salt. Kosher if you have it. And then yeah, just mess around, make a crumble. Ta-da! Just trying to say mix it. You guys got the point. So now we're going to take this and mix it in with the berries. You know what I do have? I've got some pomegranate seeds. I'm gonna make it a berry buckle, not a peachberry buckle, a berry buckle. Just so you guys can see here, I'm basically just gonna spread out a little bit of it. You, by all means, scooch this up. By all means, you do not have to make this a bundt cake. I have just decided to. So we are just layering this along the bottom. Ta-da! And then the next step, it says to then layer with some fruit. So it calls for peaches. I don't have them, so I'm gonna do some pomegranate, then some blueberries, and my screen just went off here. Okay, so I've then got some pomegranate in place of peaches for my berry buckle. And then what they say is to fold in the blueberries, which basically means add in your fruit, and then instead of mixing it, you're just kind of folding it over like so. Hopefully you get the idea. But that is what we're doing with this. And then you'll take this mixture and add it to this one here. So, I mean, you could theoretically mix it all together and then put it in the bowl, but we'll play by the rules to a degree. Don't always do that on this show. So let's just get this going. All right. Do this. And the colors are pretty cool. I don't know if you can see here, but we've got like the purpley blueberry mixed in and the pomegranate. So this is nice. I was not expecting to make this today. And now I have coffee cake, which is great. Because I love coffee and I love cake.
50-something episodes in.
Do I know how to do this? No. But yeah, this was a great idea. I wasn't expecting to have a little bit of coffee cake, but who's going to complain? There's
Right?
coffee cake now in my house, which is great.
I just realized I forgot a fork. Keep talking.
Okay, no worries. You can eat with your hands. We're adults.
Yeah, I can.
Time for more. Oh man, it's so good.
Okay.
This is good. So
Yeah.
I did pomegranate and blueberry in mine. You did traditional peach and blueberry?
Yeah. Are we recording, by the way?
Mm-hmm. We are. Yeah.
No, it's like on my phone.
This is so good.
So
This is really good.
it's funny because the peaches and the blueberries are both summer fruits.
Mhm.
It's something that I really only make like once or twice a year, but in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And in the
That's
10 to
amazing.
12 months that go by, I forget about a lot of what I'm doing, which is to say that I always get about halfway through the baking and think to myself, this is a gigantic catastrophe. There's no way that it's supposed to look like this. There's no way it's supposed to be this thick and this goopy. I have totally screwed this up. And then I put it in the oven and it works.
I think that's a good metaphor for life.
Yeah. Just keep stirring and put it in the oven.
Just bake it for a bit longer.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, because your world is very movie based and entertainment, is this Does this coffee cake thing remind you of a film? Like, is that why you said let's do a coffee cake? Or
Well, yes and no.
okay.
It comes from a different realm of my nerddom,
Mm,
which is to say that I had actually never heard of a buckle before. When I first came across this, I was like,
me
I have
neither.
no idea what this even is. I mean, it could be pancakes, it could be a waffle. I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what this is. Um, I came across it in a comic book of all places. I came across it. My favorite superhero is Captain Marvel, and about 2 years ago, there was a story that starts with her going home, going back and visiting her mom in New England. And when she first walks in, she's like, "What do I smell?" She's like, "Peach and blueberry buckle with extra brown sugar." And I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea what that is, but now I'm very curious.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in a comic book of all places, I came across the idea to try something very different.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. I've never pulled that out of a comic book like a recipe like that for like Betty and Veronica and the Archie comics I used to read. Like occasionally would be like a fashion thing, but
Right.
good find. Good
It's
find.
it's the funny thing is that
Hmm.
the stories that are told in the medium, they can do all kinds of things, right? Like I know
Hmm.
everybody's getting a little bit weary of them taking over their multiplexes,
Right.
but within their own little form, within the comic books, there's times where superheroes will argue over TV spoilers. There's times where somebody will go and visit mom and she's making
Yeah.
peach cobbler. It
True.
it has more time and more space to get off on these weird little personal tangents.
Yeah.
When I was a
Remember.
kid, I my cousin got me into comic books in the first place. My cousin Colin
Hmm.
got me into comic books. He really liked Thor,
Okay.
but Thor didn't do a whole lot for me. But I started reading Superman comics, and one of my first
Cool.
ones was actually like one of like the classic Superman comics. It's called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow,
Oh.
released
Okay.
around like 85,
Hmm.
86. It was crazy because I didn't fully understand it reading it as a little kid. I got little bits
Yeah.
and pieces of what was going on, but it was a
Yeah.
larger story that like Superman has disappeared. But yeah, I grew up
That's true.
and still love Superman as a character. It's
Hmm.
just kind of tricky because nowadays storytellers don't really know what to do with him. He's invincible. He's basically Jesus. There's only so many stories you can tell.
He's got his limits. He does.
Mhm.
I think for me, my first one was, and I might still have it actually, Little Archie. I feel like I had a
But
Little Archie comic. That was my first one. But definitely Casper, Richie Rich. Those were things I read a lot. And then I got into
okay.
Star Wars. So
Mhm, mhm.
I've got some Star Wars comics.
I mean, like to be fair, I took a long time off
Hmm.
um, from them. Like I drifted away for like a good, I'd say like 15 years or
Oh, wow.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, so but it's, I mean, the good thing is you can always catch up and there's so many of them.
Hmm.
And they're all digital now. So even if you don't want to, line your apartment with funny pieces of paper, you can do a lot digitally these days.
It's so true. Yeah, I'm glad I've got the ones that I've kept because it's kind of fun to like rifle through, especially for like the old ads. And you see ads for like Atari or send away for these like there would always be that page of like collection of random toys. That
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that we're all probably absolute junk.
One of them was gold. One of them. One of them
Yeah.
was good. I'm certain of it. So there was some big news today. I mean, this is gonna be a bit different in a couple of weeks when the show airs, but today Toronto has announced we're gonna go to like the next stage. We're gonna go back to the movie theaters, back to restaurants as people want to.
Mhm.
And I gotta ask, what is your go-to movie snack? What does Ryan McNeil have to have when he goes to the movies?
Um, it depends actually. So lately, and by lately I mean
At home?
6 months ago, when we could go to movies, I was enjoying going to a very late show on a weeknight, like on a Thursday or so. I
Yeah.
would go at like either 10, 11, or even midnight, which is a little nuts because I got to get up for work the next day.
A little nuts.
But I was
Yeah.
enjoying like kind of that you're out late on a school night kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
The thing though is that if I was going to do that, I'd have to get coffee. So I usually my snack of choice at the movies was just to get a black coffee for a really, really late night show.
Okay.
Which is weird because you'd think that then you'd stay up after you have like, and I drink my coffee black. So you'd think that like after after you've stayed up to this movie until like either midnight 1 or 2 on a school night,
Right.
then you'd be just rigging your system with caffeine. But somehow I was always able to sleep it off. If I'm going at a normal time, or I'm going to like a matinee, I prefer bottled water or just like a water bottle if I don't want to. If I want to be a little bit more environmentally friendly, and chocolate, like just like a straight Hershey's bar.
Gotcha. It's interesting you mention the coffee, which, by the way, do you recognize this mug?
Oh my dear God.
Do you still have yours?
Not even though it's long gone.
Our high school mug.
I'm not sure if mine made it off the boat, to be entirely honest.
Good times. Yeah, I'm pretty proud I kept this thing. I'm pretty damn proud. But it's funny you mentioned getting a coffee at a movie. Now, I don't go to movies that late when I do see a show, unless for some reason I'm going to a late night screening of like, a premiere or something. But my go-to is tea. That's my movie go-to.
I mean, it's
weird.
I drink far more tea than I drink coffee. I just find like late at night, I find it just gives me that extra little boost. I drink more tea over the course of the day. So by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, I'll be on like cup number 3 sometimes, or even cup number 4. So it's like, I want a different flavor.
Yeah.
But I mean, like tea would definitely go with what we made really, really well.
Absolutely. I chose to go with coffee because I'm addicted now. I didn't drink coffee. I would say I didn't become a coffee drinker until like my early 30s. Didn't touch it. Yeah. But then when I started waitressing, I worked at this diner where the coffee was just fantastic, and I'm addicted. I'm like fully hooked. So I'm new to it, but I didn't drink it before.
The funny thing with mine is, over the course of my life, I've taken my coffee every way you can imagine. I've taken it like regular, I've taken it double, I've taken it with just milk.
Yeah.
And several years ago, I think like 4 or 5 years ago now, somebody was talking to me about like where they went somewhere and got like really good coffee. And they said, I can't imagine ruining that brew by adding milk to it. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I was trying to like watch my calories at the time too, and I thought, okay, black coffee is a zero-sum game. Yeah. So I that's how I take it now. But in order to do that, I had to go back to like drinking smalls, because the first few times I was trying to drink coffee black, it just was not happening. Yeah. Like I'd get a large and I'd never finish it. The great thing about that though is nobody can ever screw up your coffee order. Like, like if you only drink your coffee black and somebody gives it to you, especially if it's got milk in it, you're screwed. It's like, oh, well now, I can't get the milk out of my coffee. It's not like you handed me a black coffee, but that's not how I take it. So I add in the cream and sugar. Right. If somebody hands you something wrong and it's got the wrong thing already in it, the great thing about having drank it every different way is my order can never be completely screwed up. It'll do. It might not be my first choice, but I'll drink it.
For sure. Yeah. The only time coffee can get screwed up, and I only learned this by the one time I went to a coffee cupping session where you like smell the beans, smell the grind, drink, sniff, all that thing. If one bean is off, your brew is just, you're shot.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Coffee cupping's pretty cool to go to if that ever comes back again. It was a pretty fun little adventure, I would have to say. Do you share your popcorn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do. And
Does
there are
Lindsay?
now and then I do.
Does your wife share it? Lindsay?
Well, that's often what'll happen is when my wife and I go to the movies, and for your viewers, my wife, who you introduced me to, good work,
You're welcome.
in line at the Toronto Film Festival,
Yeah.
we'll go, and she might feel in a bit of a mood for popcorn, but my wife, who eats like a bird anyways, knows that she's not going to finish even a small bucket or a medium bucket. So she goes, if I get popcorn, will you eat it? Right? Because she doesn't want to pay for it and then just sit there with this thing in her lap. So yeah, popcorn, yeah, bring it on. It's, it's not my first choice. It's just, it goes with, of course. And some movies kind of demand it, like the summertime movies, when there are summertime movies.
Yes.
They kind of demand popcorn. But it's not usually my first go-to.
Yeah, I find with popcorn, I'm good with the child size, because for me, that like first third of it is the delicious part where you've got the butter, you've got the toppings, and then it's just sawdust.
Yeah.
Never finished that bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. That was such a fun outing when you guys met. And I was thinking today, that was like a bit of an episode of This Is Your Life for me, because I went to high school with you. I went to college with Lindsay. And then also with us was my friend Kelly Hunter, who I went to grade school with.
Oh, wow.
That was like generational.
No kidding.
So, what is the one movie that gets you every time?
Oh, that's easy. Field of Dreams. Which growing up, was always the one that could make me cry in the end. I'm a typical guy in that respect, like guys will always comment all the time about crying at movies and whatever, but there's not a guy in the world who does not cry at the end of Field of Dreams.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. It's the book that it's based on. I love that book. It's that kind of it's a throwback kind of movie. Really, it's the kind of movie that you could see Jimmy Stewart being in back in the day.
Totally.
Recently, over the last 3 years or so, 3 years and change, since my father passed away, it's a little harder to watch. Like, I will get messy even talking about it sometimes. And then by the time the end rolls around, I'm just a complete goner. Yeah. But that is one. It's a journey, right? Because it's funny, it's beautiful. I'm a baseball fan, so of course I get a hit of baseball. It's got everything all baked into one nice little buckle.
Yeah, no, I am pretty excited to see baseball games again, but I miss being at the park with like my hot dog and my Bud Light Lime, which is what I get every time.
Yeah, baseball, I mean, talking about food, baseball has become a whole like culinary exploration these days, right? Like peanuts and Cracker Jack, forget that. You can go to places and get like prime rib, you can get like crab sandwiches. It depends on where you go.
Oh, totally. Like in Toronto, I don't know if you were doing this for past seasons of Jays games, but I would look up and see what the new items were on the Blue Jays menu at the ballpark, and kind of like scout out what I wanted to get and what I wanted to try. But yeah, I miss that aspect of the park. I mean, it's insanely expensive. Oh, yeah. It's become such a foodie spot, It's
all of them. I mean, within Toronto, we're only kind of exposed to what happens in one, two stadiums, really, maybe three if you count something like BMO Field. You're only exposed to that. But just in general, I've over the several years, I've been trying to take my little ballpark road trips down to the States and see a lot of different cities and kind of see what the experience is in a lot of these cities. That has been put on hold for quite some time. But at all of these parks, like getting in is expensive and beer is expensive and food is expensive. but I mean, it's all like relatively speaking, like the cost of
Yeah.
living has come up and the cost of entertainment has come up,
Mhm.
and this is how they make their money. What I usually ask myself is it worth it? Like, am I getting something good for what I pay?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about going to the Jays games and seeking out something like, there was a few years ago, they did like a cauliflower poutine.
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the cauliflower good? Is the fries good? Is the gravy good? Or does it
No.
look like it's all just like processed crap? I'll pay
Yeah.
for good food regardless if it comes from a cafe or a ballpark, but
Right.
I don't want it to be something that's just been reheated like an airplane.
Yeah. I remember that meal specifically, and I was underwhelmed.
Yeah, it was fine.
Because that was like, how do you fuck that up? It's cauliflower.
Yeah.
Reading a couple days ago that the folks who produce those peanuts for the ballpark, obviously their business has hit a bit of a curve. Baseball pun. But I think they're trying to market those for like at home watching, so like you can like be with your family and just chuck peanuts all over the ground.
I was gonna say, are you allowed to drop the shells on the floor? Because that's
gotta
the best
be.
thing in the ballpark is you just drop your stuff on the ground. I don't understand how that. I really don't understand how that ever became a thing. I mean, I do it. I'm at the ballpark. Like anything on, like shells are on the floor, empty
Yeah.
cups are on the floor, like anything. I don't look for a garbage can. It's the only place ever. I just think to myself, leave it. And I can't explain that.
You've got a point. I have always left stuff under my seat. I never bothered to clear it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if I was eating it or drinking it as I'm leaving, then I'll take it with me. But no, anything else, it's there. Even at the movies, I don't leave stuff on the floor at the movies. I take that with me and throw it out on the way out. But
with me.
yeah, but a stadium, down it goes. I wouldn't do that in a park, but yet in this one structure, the floor is the garbage can.
It's a foodie show that I have here. Are there any movies that come to mind that are your like go-to food movies? For me, Big Night and Chocolat are like my two, and Julie and Julia. I think those are my top three.
Big Night will leave me starving every time I watch that.
Even saying it now, I want to go to an Italian restaurant.
Recently, one that I really, really enjoyed that I feel like didn't really get its due attention, but I always see it on Netflix, so I kind of hope it bubbles up into some people's ideas of what to watch. There's a movie from about 5 years ago by Jon Favreau called Chef. Did you ever see that one?
I didn't, and I wanted to, and totally forgot about it.
So the idea is he's this chef of a gourmet restaurant, and he the top food critic for the city is coming to review the restaurant. They've been putting a whole lot of money and effort into a relaunch, and this is kind of his make or break moment. And he gets into a flame war with the critic, and things just go spectacularly wrong. He basically loses the restaurant from the owner, and he just decides, okay, screw it, I'm just gonna buy myself an old taco truck, redo it, and go from place to place selling Cuban sandwiches. Throughout this movie, the cooking is just bananas, and it's everything from the gourmet stuff at the beginning to even just him making these Cuban sandwiches to he makes one of the best spaghetti dinner servings like that you'll ever see. And it's the whole movie is a love letter to food, and it's so good. To mind, given that we baked this morning, is whenever I see Stranger Than Fiction from 20, I think that one was 20. Oh, I cannot remember what year it was now, but that one's with Will Ferrell and Dustin Hoffman again, who's also in Chef, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she plays a baker who gets audited. That's not at all the plot. The plot is that Will Ferrell, who's an IRS agent, finds out that he's a character in a book and that he's going to die. And because he's an IRS agent, his life leads him into auditing this baker played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. So there's a lot of talk about baking in that movie, and a lot of scenes set in her bakery that always leave me hungry for like everything she makes.
You know what? That's triggering for my brain. The movie Waitress with all the pies. Oh, oh, gosh, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
There's
like watching a movie where food is a core element. It's kind of a mixed blessing, because on the one hand it adds this level to the enjoyment of it, but on the other hand it makes you really hungry and you kind of want to like stop what you're doing and go chase the food in question. Even at TIFF, oddly enough, one of the things I will miss is the food. Like there are restaurants that I go to a lot during TIFF because they're right next to the Lightbox, or they're right next to the Ryerson or something like that. And I'm going to miss, along with the fact that I just haven't been in those neighborhoods for months, I'm going to miss going to those places either just for a table for one or to catch up with some of my friends who I only see once a year. That's going to be the bummer is, the movies are one thing, but there's a whole social element of it, including food.
No, exactly. Are there certain restaurants that you love going to each year for TIFF? Is there like one you got to get a table at this spot?
Oh yeah. Khao Road is around the corner from Lightbox. They do some fantastic Thai. They're one of these restaurants that is so busy that they won't seat you unless everybody's there. And you can't get a reservation. You just got to go. You got to say, "There's 4 of us. Are y'all 4 here? Okay," in you come. It's that kind of thing. But yeah, they moved. They used to be on Adelaide. They're now, I believe, on Peter Street, near where the Crooked Q used to be, or not the Crooked Q, near where. What was that? There was a really great pool hall.
Oh, not the Charlotte Room.
Yes, Charlotte.
Okay.
Thank you. They're where the Charlotte Room used to be.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
that was a good pool hall.
Yeah, so I won't be going to Khao Road this September. I'll have to
maybe get some takeout.
Takeout. I'll have to go make a trip now that I mention it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I love that we've covered like coffee and baseball and movies and
that we both got this cake to work because.
Yay!
I assume you're gonna post the recipe somewhere in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah. So all I can say to people is, if you go to make this thing and it seems like it's not working, that's correct. It does not look right, and so in once you've got all the batter together and once you start assembling it, you will swear up and down that you have screwed up. Just keep going. It's okay.
It'll be